Welcome to the basic menu styling, layout and functionality tutorial video for Mega Menu. Let's get straight into it. First, we're going to look at menu animation. There are several beautiful animations included with Mega Menu, and let's have a look at a couple examples here. This first one is called Ease Up. It's the default option as soon as you install the block. Another one is called Scale. This time, to show you what's possible, you can also choose to have your menus appear from the bottom upwards, and I'll show you where to set that later. That is Scale. Then there is Slide. Yeah. The next one is called Flip Down. It's a very nice subtle animation. And this one next is called Twist and Shrink. So it twists will appear and then shrinks when it disappears. It's a bit easier to see on larger menus like this. So the idea is that it's subtle, it gives a sense of motion and place, but without being too distracting from the rest of the menu. So in order to set those options, I'll show you where to do that. Okay, let's edit the block, and under Style, Menu Animation, the first field is Drop-Down Effect, and that is where you can set the animation that you want. If you're a CSS designer, you can set your own custom animations. There is some information in the documentation on c5extras.com if you would like to learn how to do that. You can also choose the speed at which the animation occurs and the direction. So by default, it will point down for the menu. If you want menus that point up, then you can choose that. So for example, you might make your mega menu fixed at the bottom of the page and you'd like your menus to go up. You can do that if you wish. Next, we're going to have a look at page icons. Under page icons here, very sensibly. Okay, if you'd like to display page icons, all you have to do is check this box and then set them on a page-by-page basis. If you decide you don't want them displayed, you can turn them all off from here. Also, if you'd like to convert your SVG images into inline images, which will allow them to be recolored, then just check that box. I'll show you how to set the page attributes. If you click on a page in the sitemap attributes, you can see here we've got the mega menu page icon set. In this case, it's an SVG image from the file manager. Another example here, resources. I'll click on attributes, and you can see here a PNG image. A different type of image is attached. If you're not sure the difference between SVG and PNG images, don't worry. It's just for more advanced users. Okay, there you go. You can easily add any images that be automatically scaled in order to fit within the menu. I recommend using SVG images if you can. Even if you turn this option off, then there are some features in Mega Menu that can still show icons if you choose for them to, such as the login, logout, search, and language switch. Next, we're going to have a look at the basic style settings. This is where you have a huge amount of control over the formatting and presentation of the menu. So this is going to always work regardless of the skin that you set. In the next video, I'll discuss menu skins in more detail, but to give you an idea, it's over here on the color tab, and you can choose modern skins as well as making your own. So regardless of what you choose there, then this will override it on the basic style section. We can change here the text size, text weight, whether it's underline, a horizontal gap between the menu items, if you also want padding within the menu item itself to make it look larger, and if you want to set rounded corners. These will also be partially driven by your active theme. So whatever is 100% for your active theme, then that will decide on how big the text is. If you would like to make it smaller, you can choose by how much. If you'd like to make it bigger as well, by how much. Some of these options have hidden fields behind them, such as the horizontal gap. If you set one, you also get the option to apply the same amount of gap to the vertical axis as well. And like here, if you set some rounded corners, you can choose then the size of the rounded corners and whether or not to make it appear on the wrapper as well. The wrapper is an element that surrounds the entire menu. You might not be able to notice it on the current skin because it's a transparent background, but depending on your styling or if you're making your own custom style, then this option allows you to control that. So these fields all relate to the top level navigation menu. There's an entirely separate set of fields for the drop-down menu, so you can control each of those independently of each other. Like before, you can choose a text size, weight, underline, vertical gap, and padding, but you've also got a few extra options here like vertical offset. So this is how far down the drop-down menu appears from the parent menu. You can make it a very large gap or just leave it as default. We've also got a setting here for tail. This is a small triangular element that attaches the drop-down menu to the parent item, and you can tell visually where it comes from. It gives a sense of place and structure and order. You can decide if you don't want to show it at all. You can hide it by setting it to none. Next, we're going to have a look at fonts. Under all menu text, you can start typing any font you want from Google Fonts, and it will auto-complete for you. If you're not sure what fonts to choose, then I have some recommended ones right here under the documentation on c5extras.com. Just head over to Mega Menu and look for CSS designer tips and the section called menu fonts. And I've handpicked about a dozen recommended fonts to use, because when you have over 1,500 to choose from, it can be quite a arduous task to decide on which ones you like. So these ones all look good. In the menu layout, it's easy to read even if the font is small. And I've given a short description for each one so you know whether or not it's a sans serif font or rounded or square or wide. If you leave it blank, as I've done here, then it's up to the active theme to decide on what font to use for the menu. You can also choose if you want the weighting or the boldness of the Google font on a scale between 100 and 900, where 900 is the heaviest. Next, we're going to have a look at the menu layout. So we'll go to the Layout tab, Menu Layout, and the horizontal alignment and layout. We've got a lot of options here about how we want to present the menu. So the default option is to show everything on the left align. You can also choose to just align the entire menu to the center. And you can have it vertically stacked if you want. So to be appearing with the logo at the top, then the menu underneath and the extras underneath that. You could also spread out all the items edge to edge. And then you start to get into more more complex types of layouts. So it can have the logo at the start, the menu at the end, or the menu at the start, the logo at the end, the logo, menu, and then extras. It keeps on going. And you can also choose to stack the extras and the menu at the end, or this very interesting layout, which is to have a horizontal line in the center and then place the logo right in the middle. So you've got really anything you can possibly imagine, you can do it with Mega Menu. Also in that same section, we have some options, an option for preventing wrapping. So by default, all of the design in Mega Menu is fully responsive. And this is a screenshot from the documentation, the page called responsive behavior, that it shows what the page looks like on very small screens without any other settings, without a particular hamburger to hide the main navigation menu. And you can see that it just wraps around to the next line, There's many lines depending on how long your menu is. You can also choose to have a hamburger, which we'll cover shortly. And this is the responsive design here. So depending, there might be a situation where you decide, okay, I don't want the menu items to wrap around in that responsive way. Then that's fine, no problem. Then you can choose to check this box saying prevent wrapping. Okay, next we're going to check out the keyboard shortcuts. So under Insert, Accessibility, there's this field for keyboard shortcuts. This explains here a little bit more about what that means. You can use a combination of keys on your keyboard to activate individual menu items. I'll turn that on. Depending on your browser, there are different keyboard shortcuts. You'll also need to set the shortcut key for every page on your top level menu. So in this case, I've taken organization, go to attributes, and we've set the custom page attribute for Mega Menu Access Key. I've used the letter O. It makes sense because O is the first letter in that name. If you have a situation like Shop and Sandbox where S is the same, you can choose a second letter such as the H from Shop or an entirely different letter if you wish. This is what it looks like once we exit edit mode. You can see the links that have got shortcut keys assigned automatically have that letter underlined. So O in organization and A in about. If I press Control Option on my keyboard, which I'm using a Mac and Google Chrome, the keyboard shortcut set slightly different for different operating systems, then you'll see a little letter next to the word organization and about that gives a visual indicator to the user about what keyboard shortcut to use. So letter O will trigger organization. And if I do the same with A, then it triggers the About menu. If you want to find out what keyboard shortcut to use, I've put a link to this in the editor interface. Right here, you can see a link to view key shortcuts. Next, we're going to have a look at mobile. Okay, so there's two different approaches to mobile handling. We can show a hamburger menu or responsive. I've got an example here of what that looks like. This is a hamburger menu where it appears and slides out of the side of the page and it obscures part of the page that you can't see anymore. Or a responsive design is where the menu collapses into a vertical list like this. Each of them have their pros and cons, and it depends on your goals and your design preferences. But here we have a look at all the features that you can choose from in Mega Menu. First of all, we'll start with hamburger. You can choose to display the modern style or more classic older style. I usually recommend the modern style. You can choose the hamburger icon size. If you want to decide the menu once appears on the left or the right, you can do that. You can also optionally add a label such as the word menu so that the user knows exactly what the hamburger is for. If you don't want anything, just clear that field out. You can decide to show the hamburger icon all the time or relative to the page, depending on how you want it to scroll with the rest of the page. There are several options here for the animation. These are slightly different depending on the hamburger menu style field. They each give a slightly different animation, so pretty descriptive there. There's little bars will spin or they'll squeeze, turn into a tornado and spin around. You can test them out, see what you like. Behavior is how and when it should show the hamburger menu. In this case, I've got it on both, which is probably not what most users would have. You probably have it on small devices because you don't need a hamburger for large devices such as a desktop. I've just got it turned on to this so that we can see it while I'm recording this video. Some users may want to activate the hamburger on hover. I recommend not. It will just activate on click otherwise. You can choose to show the rest of the page just slightly darker or also apply a gentle blur to that as well. It creates more focus on the hamburger when it's opened. Within the modern hamburger, we can add stat content to the top and bottom of it. Most of the time you won't need this, but the option is there. And lastly, you can change the colors. If you leave these blank or transparent, then it'll be up to the active skin to decide on what colors to use. But even if you choose a skin, you might say, I want the hamburger button to be bright pink, and you can choose that from here as well if you want that. And that will override anything that the active skin decides to set for you. That'll set back to transparent for all of them. So what I'll do is I'll show you what the hamburger menu looks like. We'll get out of edit mode. The hamburger doesn't show while you're in edit mode because otherwise it interferes with the editor interface for Concrete CMS. Okay, here is the hamburger menu on the top left. And when it expands, it will show a series of pages which can be navigated one layer at a time. This is the modern style. Very user-friendly, works well on mobile devices. Got here the search tool as well. And you can see the background is blurred out because I've checked that box. That's how we activate and deactivate the hamburger menu. So there you have it. There is all the options for basic menu styling, layout, and functionality. Next, we're going to be going over the menu skins and colors. So stick around for the next video.